Get this, Deck Gang, one of the best Steam Deck content creators is releasing a video game to Steam really soon. He let me give it a spin on my Steam Deck and it works great there. It's a local multiplayer game that works with Steam Remote Play, and I think I want to hold a tournament for this game when it releases. I can't wait to tell you all about it, so stick around to the end of this video for that information. Outside of that, it's been a hell of a week for the Steam Deck, and we're going to talk about all of it in this week's Deck News Roundup. I have a major Steam Deck problem that some people seem to be experiencing, so I want to make you all aware of this just in case. That way you know what to do if you experience this problem and hopefully how to avoid it altogether. I also want to talk about some new Steam Deck competition that is looking quite good actually. In fact, it appears that 2024 is the year that we're going to see the Steam Deck get dethroned in one particular category where it has yet to be toppled, at least according to one insider. That will certainly be interesting. Finally, the Steam Deck proves once again that it is all about the games, as big games continue to perform well on deck, even ones with kernel level anti-cheat, not to mention some big games that got updated to work even better on deck. You may have noticed that I'm very close to 90k subscribers, but 2/3 of you watching this video are not subscribed. That's all right, no big deal. I'm not one to judge, but if you want to help a brother get to that silver play button this year, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as we get started. When the Steam Deck released, it had launch problems. When the ROG Ally and the Lenovo Legion Go launched, they too had problems. Even when a new iteration, the Steam Deck OLED, came out, that had issues too. For the Steam Deck OLED, some people found that they had dead pixels on their display, and some others found that they had a headphone jack that produced static noise that was audible when they used their IEM earbuds. That headphone jack problem is even one I ran into with both of my Steam Deck OLEDs, and I mentioned it several times on this channel, just like I did with a lot of these issues. Likewise, many people have been experiencing a black screen of death on the Steam Deck recently, and it's a really bad problem that makes the screen of the Steam Deck stay black indefinitely, even after a screen replacement, which seems to imply that the problem is somewhere in the software and not the hardware. This was first shared with me by a commenter named JKS211, so shout out to them for passing this info on to me. They linked a Reddit thread with a lot of people experiencing the same problem. The same information got shared to the Linus Tech Tips forums, and I've even seen the same problem pop up a few times in that Steam Deck subreddit since the first thread 2 weeks ago. So why does this happen? How can you prevent it? And what do you do if you're already experiencing it? First of all, this is happening to LCD models and OLED models alike. It appears to happen randomly when you have 0% battery, where the screen goes off and simply never comes back. You aren't even able to see the backlight or enter the BIOS. The OP of the original Reddit thread said that you can still share the display with an external monitor or TV, so you should be able to dock it for some troubleshooting. Also, the touchscreen continues to work, which again seems to indicate that the screen itself is not actually damaged or broken. Nothing seems to work to fix this problem, including going into the BIOS, using a monitor, doing a factory reset, re-imaging the system, or even replacing the screen entirely. So if you want to prevent this from happening, it seems the best thing you can do is just not let your Steam Deck get to 0% battery and just listen to it when it gives you the 10% warning, and especially when it gives you that 5% warning. But if this problem is already happening to you, then you need to contact Valve support even if you are past your warranty period. While it is possible that Valve may not be able to help you if you're past that period, you won't know if you don't ask, and if enough people are experiencing this very same issue and reporting it to Valve, it's going to encourage Valve to produce a fix as soon as possible. So be the squeaky wheel, let Valve know if you are one of the unlucky ones. By the way, if you want to avoid reaching that 0% and you're looking to keep your Steam Deck topped up with a good charge, I have just the thing for you. The new Nexode Pro 65W Mini from today's sponsor UGreen is a compact charger that's not only great for charging a Steam Deck, but this little guy can also get a MacBook Air M2 from 0 to 50% in only 30 minutes thanks to AirPria and GaN Infinity Tech. And look how much smaller it is than other 65W chargers. These chips combined are able to convert 95% of the energy received to charge the devices they're connected to, which literally leads to less waste, which is also better for the environment. At a combined 65 watts, you can use the 2 USB-C ports and 1 USB-A port to charge up to 3 devices at once. That means I can charge my AirPods, plus my phone, plus a laptop or PC handheld at the same time. And it's perfect for any of your devices thanks to its broad compatibility with fast charger protocols, including the 45-watt Samsung Super Fast Charging 2.0 protocol. Finally, for just a few more days, you can get the Nexode Pro 65-watt Mini for 15% off, so be sure to use my link in the description to help support this channel. Thank you to UGreen for sponsoring this video. One much smaller warning is that Emulation Station was updated in this last week, and you may have had problems with your EmuDeck configuration. Emulation Station was renamed to just ESDE as it was updated to 3.0. There are some nice new larger fonts and updated look overall, and support for swapping the A, B, and XY buttons. Notably, it also had a breaking change in that it changed the name of the configuration folder. This may have messed you up if you were using ESDE via EmuDeck, but EmuDeck quickly pumped out an update to resolve this. You should be able to go to manage emulators and update ESDE from there, and everything should be all good. If you're still experiencing problems, the EmuDeck Discord has a forum where you can get some help. As I was saying in the intro, it does appear that Steam Deck competition is getting really real, and there are 3 big handheld news items to talk about, so let's get into it and let me know what you think of all of these. First of all, with the news that Microsoft is going to be releasing some sort of hardware this holiday season, the chatter that this could be an Xbox Series H really began to pick up, and while a handheld from Microsoft would make a ton of sense, there's a lot of division on the internet as to what form such a handheld would take. Would it be more of a Windows handheld where the operating system has been tailored to be easier to use like the Steam Deck, or would it be a proper Xbox handheld that has the power to perhaps match the Xbox Series S, but in a handheld format? On my timeline, it seems that most people preferred a Windows handheld, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm very curious about a portable Series S. Don't get me wrong, I desperately want Microsoft to make a more handheld-friendly version of Windows, but a Series H seems like something that can get to a price point that really competes with the entry-model Steam Decks, while also giving me certain specific things that the Steam Deck can't, like rare replay and generally better ability to play Xbox 360 games, and even more native support for Game Pass than Windows has. Would I actually buy it though? I don't know, I can't say for sure, but I'm very curious. How about you? Is that something you would buy? What about a Windows handheld that's made by Microsoft? What do you think? The second big piece of competition for the Steam Deck this year is the 8840U. Before releasing his review of the new GPD WinMax 2, Carrie Galone, better known as The Fox, took to Twitter to tease us with some early results. He tweeted an Arkham Knight benchmark test saying, quote, "Steam Deck low TDP performance finally dethroned. GPD continues to make the best AMD devices. 8840U shouldn't be better, but everywhere I'm testing it is consistently better across every TDP." End quote. Now, dethroned is a really huge claim here. I've been waiting for new chips to perform better than the Steam Deck has when it comes to low wattages, because battery life and power efficiency are incredibly important to me. They're not important to everyone, of course, but it helps my quality of life to have a device that can last as long as the OLED does, and in fact, I'd love for devices to overtake the OLED in this category. In Carrie's final review, however, we learned that the results are actually a lot more nuanced. One of the big takeaways is that at 10 watts, the 8840U consumes about 7% more total system power than the 7840U, but it does yield about an 11% increase in performance, so the improvement is not quite as large as we first thought. Importantly, 8840U seems to be better at handling faster RAM, so there's more headroom at the higher end of the TDP. So it seems we may still have to wait for the Steam Deck to be dethroned after all. Carrie did an incredible job of breaking all of this nuance down in his review of the GPD WinMax 2, and I highly suggest watching it to get a better idea, so I will leave a link to that in the description. One of the most important things he said is that we're going to have to really think about how we're doing benchmarks in order to best communicate all of this nuance, and he's absolutely right. The most exciting competition, however, at least to me, is the Orange Pi Neo, and we now have more information on that handheld too. If you recall, the Orange Pi Neo is a collaboration between the hardware company Orange Pi and the developers of the Linux distro Manjaro. Well, the Manjaro team launched a new page at neo.manjaro.org detailing this new handheld, and I've got to say, I can't wait to try it. Just like the Steam Deck, it has native mouse simulation and gyro support, plus customizable key mapping for keyboard, mouse, and system functions. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any back paddles like the Steam Deck, but it does have 2 additional buttons on the shoulder, LC and RC. But of course, what makes the Orange Pi Neo so compelling to me are the dual touchpads. Only the Steam Deck and Aya Neo Kun have dual touchpads, and I've been waiting to see this attempted on other handhelds. On the Neo, these touchpads have support for gesture controls and more. Ideally, these touchpads will be supported in Steam the same way the Deck's touchpads are, but I guess we'll have to wait and see to learn more. Overall, the specs seem good too, thanks to a 7840U, 50 watt-hour battery, LPDDR5 RAM, and a 7-inch 1200p 120Hz display. For liberty, for freedom, for democracy. You know, publishers of AAA games must be re-evaluating everything right now. Between Lethal Company, Pal World, and the success of Helldivers 2, it's becoming clearer and clearer that you don't have to blow the bank to make a hit game. Each of these games have broken records when it comes to most concurrent players on Steam, and for Helldivers 2 in particular, this is far and away Sony's biggest release to Steam, at least again in terms of concurrent players. It beat out The Last of Us, Uncharted, Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn, and even God of War. God of War peaked with just under 75,000 concurrent players, but in just a few short weeks, Helldivers 2 has managed to 6x that with a peak of over 458,000 concurrent players. Mind you, that number has been steadily growing, and Arrowhead, the studio behind this game, had actually capped the capacity at 450,000 across both PlayStation and PC, and then increased it to 700K with a warning that they absolutely expect to reach that server cap in the coming days. As for Steam Deck compatibility, it is mostly good, but there is one big problem. First, the good, it's rated playable. It does require changing settings to get decent performance. Additionally, the invasive anti-cheat does not keep the game from being played on the Steam Deck, so that's good news overall. As for the bad news, unfortunately, Helldivers 2 does not play nicely with Steam input. Gyro works if you're using a Sony controller, but does not work for the Steam Deck or Steam controller or anything else where you would need to leverage virtual mouse input, which means that aiming with gyro or trackpads is a no-go, at least for the most part. In fact, even Steam Remote Play doesn't work well because it uses virtual mouse input also. You can actually configure gyro or trackpad to emulate analog stick input, and that will work, but it isn't nearly as good as emulating mouse input. Apparently, the virtual mouse input was working before, but was broken with a patch that was released on the 15th. Arrowhead does have a support page where you can submit requests, so maybe this is a good opportunity to tell them that you want support for virtual mouse input. I'll leave a link to that in the description. In other games on deck news, Lies of P has removed their de novo DRM. Lies of P is another one of those games that's putting AAA publishers to shame. It's one of the best Souls-likes out there, as good as the FromSoft entries, I'd say. And to be honest, I don't terribly mind games releasing with DRM like de novo, as long as the studios are responsible about removing that DRM after the launch window, just like the team behind Lies of P have done here. This update comes with a nice 25% discount, so if you haven't picked up Lies of P yet, then now might be a good time. Speaking of the best Souls-likes ever, Elden Ring's long-awaited DLC finally got a release date of June 20th, which gives you enough time to dust off Elden Ring and finish the fight. Elden Ring, of course, was a launch title of sorts for the Steam Deck, so I am definitely hoping that it still performs well after the Shadow of Erdtree DLC releases. Either way, it looks incredible, and I'll definitely be picking it up. Dead Island 2 also has a release date for Steam. It'll be reaching Valve's storefront on April 22nd. Dead Island 2, as you know, was previously an Epic Games Store exclusive. Interestingly, Epic Games just released their year in review, and it gives some insight into how well third-party games are selling on their storefront. Apparently, Epic has over 800 million accounts across all platforms, with over 75 monthly active users. Additionally, the store made almost $1 billion in revenue last year, which is a 16% improvement against 2022. All of these stats, however, include Fortnite, which you have to imagine makes up a large portion of the customer base. Thankfully, Epic also let us know that $310 million was specifically spent on third-party games, which is a 13% decrease from the previous year. According to the research platform VG Insights, $310 million is less than 1% of what was spent on Steam. In fact, according to Valve's own annual summary and as reported by GamingOnLinux.com, $80 million in gift cards alone were redeemed between December 20th and December 31st. So yeah, it appears that EGS still has a long way to go to make any significant headway into the market share that Valve appears to have on the PC marketplace. A couple other things to watch out for. Cultist Simulator got a big improvement on Steam Deck, and 2024 continues its amazing start when it comes to game releases with a couple new entries this week. Penny's Big Breakaway is a 3D platformer from the studio behind Sonic Mania, and it's got great art and sound, but admittedly the platforming is not clicking for me yet. I'm hoping that it opens up as I play some more. On the other hand, Balatro is a roguelite deck builder that is perfect on deck. It's got 98% positive reviews, and it's already sold 250,000 copies, so clearly I'm not alone. As one of the top reviews says, this is a game that nails the fun aspects of gambling games without putting you in debt. You have a ton of ways to literally stack the deck in your favor, and you have to be creative about which ones are going to be the ones that get you to the end game. How can you set yourself up with cards, passive abilities, and active abilities that gel with one another? I'm still early, so one of my favorites was a Joker that let me build a flush or a straight with only 4 cards, and I paired that with buffs to flushes, and that was driving my multipliers way up. Definitely check it out if you get a chance. Tomb Raider 1-3 Remastered was recently released as well, and there's actually a really cool feel-good story that I'll tell you about in a moment. Unsurprisingly, this collection plays well on deck and it looks great too. There are modern controls for this collection, but I'm not gonna lie, classic tank controls are kind of the way to go, and there's actually a good reason why the modern controls are broken. I started playing this immediately after I finished Lords of Exile, which is another good game by the way. It's kind of like Castlevania 3 meets Shinobi 3, so if you like either one of those, you're probably gonna enjoy this too. Anyway, so I started playing Tomb Raider after I finished Lords of Exile, and I was just reminded of how much control you had over Lara with the classic tank controls. Yeah, it takes a ton of getting used to, but the original 3 Tomb Raider games are all grid-based, and you can be very precise with Lara's movements. Pressing back moves you back exactly one grid space, rolling does the same thing and it turns you around, and when you press jump as you're running, Laura's actually not going to jump until she's moved forward by one grid space or one block. There are other advanced movements too, but you get the idea. The point being that modern controls just won't work properly. You're going to lose all that granularity and control that the original games were built on. But if you do want to play something that is basically the original Tomb Raider with actually good modern controls, then you should check out Tomb Raider Anniversary, which is playable on deck. As for the feel-good story, this one made me really happy. So before the remaster, the best way to play the OG Raider games was actually via OpenLara. OpenLara is an open source project that recreates the Tomb Raider engine such that you can play natively rather than emulated and with modern amenities like widescreen support and high-def resolution. It was a project that I have a lot of love for, so I was pleasantly surprised when the developer of the project, Xproger, posted on Twitter saying that OpenLara is actually on hold indefinitely because, as he put it, quote, "For the past year, I've been busy with a dream project that has been the culmination of the last 8 years of my life, Tomb Raider 1-3 Remastered," end quote. Yes, the developer of OpenLara has secretly been at the helm of this remastered bundle for the past year. This story reminds me of Night Dive, one of my favorite studios. The lead engine developer at Night Dive got his start with doing engine recreations of games like Doom 64 and Power Slave as a hobby, and eventually went on to develop the commercial remasters for those same games. That is amazing stuff. Alright, Deck Gang, like I said in the intro, one of the best Steam Deck content creators, Gardiner Bryant, has been working on a game. It's called Doodlings, and what I've played so far is pretty neat. First things first though, go to the store page now and hit the wishlist button, because this is usually the only way for an independently made game on Steam to reach more people. The idea of the game is that you and an opponent fight for control of the doodlings at the bottom of the screen to jump and hit the ball into the goal. You can try to sabotage your opponent by punching nearby doodlings, which will stun the player if they're already on them, but also it makes that particular doodling unreachable for a certain period of time. And there are other wrinkles to the gameplay just like that one. It is designed for local multiplayer, but it works with remote play, so I can't wait for Gardiner to show it off some more and hopefully announce a release date soon. In the meantime, definitely hit that wish list and let me know what you think in the comments. I hope you're all having a wonderful week. Thanks to UGreen for sponsoring this video. Check them out in the description. Deck Gang out. Goodbye.